quite often somebody might buy a home, buy the franchise, invest in the franchise, buy the home, convert it to, the home into, memory care, assisted living care. And then what they'll do is they'll sell the franchise itself, and then they'll keep the building. And that way they have that franchisee in there. And the franchise agreement's about 5 or 10 years, so they're pretty solid and they can keep around for a while.
Welcome to the Real Estate Reserve podcast, the number one investing show where we interview experts in business. My name is Jason Down from Hard Money Bankers. This is Ian Horowitz from Equity Warehouse. We've got a great guest that I'm actually really looking forward to hearing from here in a second, named Greg Mohr. The topic is going to be everything related to franchising. He's the CEO and founder of Franchise Maven. So I don't know about you, Ian, but it's definitely a topic that I'm super interested in, and I can't wait to kind of pick Greg's brain on this.
Yeah, that would be interesting to hear about, just because, we're always so real estate everything because it's the best business model in the world, whether you're buying and owning real estate to rent or you're a lender, like the guy next to me. But either way, it's one of the best asset classes. But, you hear a lot of people always challenging you. Oh, but businesses, you can have exponential growth. So I'm excited to hear about that. What else I'm excited to hear? We're recording this end of January. The Fed is supposed to tell us what's going to happen. I'm really interested following that because I think that's going to signal what the next quarter is going to look like. Hot topic for me, just wanted to put it out there. But guys, if you get any value out of this show, the best thing you can do for us is to like, share, comment. This way we know you're enjoying the show. Sharing is probably the best compliment you can give us. If you get value out of this, please go ahead and tell your friends about it. Enough about us, because we'll ramble on all day, and we want to bring in Greg and talk about franchises.
Greg, how are you?
Excellent, Jason. Beautiful day today.
Absolutely. Why don't we just start off a little bit? Just, I guess, tell us maybe a little bit about yourself and how you got into franchising.
Thanks, Jason. Well, amazingly enough, it was a long, long time ago in a land far, far away. Back in high school, my high school days, all of us, or most of us back in our high school days, especially back in the late 70s when I was in high school, we had to go work somewhere. So fast food was one of the first places we worked at. So I hooked up with Taco Bell, my first job there. And unbeknownst to myself at the time, I was working for a master franchisor. She owned about 50 Taco Bells throughout the Woodland, California area where I lived in Sacramento, California. I moved up in that chain and worked for her and managed her restaurants, which was a whole lot of fun. But then I found out that she was actually a master franchisor for Taco Bell, owned 50 different Taco Bell restaurants. And I thought that was just, wow, that was something that was simply amazing. You walk in and I helped her build up her restaurants. So I'd go manage a bunch of her restaurants for her. And every time I went into each one, it was always the same thing. They had the playbook there, simple process to go in there, operate that, build up those sales. I went on to manage other restaurants for about 15 years, got a degree in electrical engineering and physics, did that for about 15 years, got into real estate myself, got a couple of properties that I managed, rental properties, bought a dry cleaners with a friend of mine, and we did that together. Then I went and got a degree in business, master's degree in business, read Robert Kiyosaki's book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. That absolutely ruined my corporate career for me out there. And he said, there's something better out there. And I'm thinking, there's got to be something better out there than working. And I was working 7 to 5, Monday through Friday, and sometimes nights and sometimes weekends. So I decided, after getting my degree, there's got to be something better out there. So I left the corporate world, and I just thought back to my days at Taco Bell and franchising, because I wanted to get into business for myself. So I thought that franchising thing was really cool. How can I get into that? So I went out there and I started going click happy and, clicking on all these different franchises. And I had like 20 different franchise people calling me up, telling me all about their franchise. And I finally got a hold of a franchise consultant who really helped, unmystify the whole process, made it nice and streamlined. Great process that he took me through in finding a franchise that was a good fit for me. So I got into franchising, did a telecommunications consulting franchise for a while, but I just kept thinking about what that franchise consultant did, which I really enjoyed. One of the things, of course, was working from home and working with wonderful people all over the United States and almost all over the world, actually. So I went back after a couple of years and said, teach me what you do. I want to be a franchise consultant. I like that business. And so that was about 12 years ago, and I haven't looked back since.
Well, I think both of you and I both want to jump in, but go ahead, Ian. You can go first.
No, the $1 million question is there a franchise for franchise consultants? That's all I kept thinking about. Like, well, how do you buy the franchise consultant? So,
Yep. So there are going to be, when you're out there looking, if you want to be a franchise consultant, there are several different groups that you can get into. Consulting organizations, broker organizations, however you want to look at them. I belong to IFPG, the International Franchise Professionals Group. And that is where they're going to teach you how to be a franchise consultant on that. And then they're the ones that have that list of the 500 franchises that I work with. They go out and get agreements with those franchises saying that if we introduce somebody to them and that person invests in that franchise, then that franchise pays us a referral fee. That way we don't have to charge our clients for our services. Now there's different groups out there that you can get into, Franchise Brokers Association, FranServe, and a few others that you can take a look at. But yes, there's it. And it's not a franchise though, by the way. It's a business opportunity out there, a little bit different than a franchise. But yes, they'll teach you everything that you need to know about being a franchise consultant. Great organizations out there.
I mean, what a great way to literally learn about almost every type of business model out there, right? What's one of the craziest franchises that you've, I guess, referred or placed a prospect into?
Probably, I would say that the most weirdest one would be duty calls. That is pest waste management. On that.
Yep.
So if you don't like picking up after your pets, there's a franchise
Yep.
that can do that for
I've
you.
heard of that.
Yeah, but amazingly enough, it goes way beyond that. And just think of, golf courses, think of parks where you got all that different kinds of critters running around that you got to clean up after. Amazing business, and they do quite well.
yeah. No, well, a buddy of ours, Jason, you know who I'm talking about down in Florida, like he looked at a lot of franchises and he would always go and teeter back and forth between franchises and real estate and lending and title company and franchise. And he's like, there's a lot of hurdles that come to franchise, capital outlays. Do you trust them? Like, we underwrite real estate and we understand it. How do you underwrite? And I know this is what you do, but if I didn't, whether I'm using you or using my own knowledge, like how do you underwrite a franchise? Because I know there's advertising fees, there's the franchise fee, there's the whatever fee, there's the capital outlay to get a lease and all these other, like, how do you know that franchise is successful and going to help you or you help them get to, like, I don't know. It's hard to explain because I always look at it and say, well, if I'm going to do a franchise, well, screw it. I can just go do my own business. Like, how are you underwriting? How do you know that doing the franchise is the right option for you versus just going and doing your own thing? I guess is what I'm asking.
Yeah, great question, Ian. That's what I go through with a lot of my clients as well. The comparisons between starting your own business or doing a franchise. First off, I don't try and convince you that franchise is the greatest thing since sliced bread, because for some people it's not. And that's one of the things that we're going to find out along the way. So take a look at your options there. If you were to start your own business, what do you have to do to get that business going? All the process and procedures that you need to do on that, as compared to a franchise, where they've already done everything that you need to do. You've got that playbook in hand right there for you. You've got that team of people, not only the franchise itself, but you've now got the other franchisees, where each franchise gives a protected territory. So for the most part, about 95% of them give a protected territory. So you're not competing with other franchisees at all in that. Everybody grows that business together on that one. However, with the business that you run yourself, everything is yours. The whole thing is yours. You do whatever you want with it. You have complete control over that. If you're going to get into a franchise, having that playbook and those policies and procedures will cost you. So it doesn't matter which franchise you get into for the most part, whether it be the brick and mortar one where you need a lease and you need a building, or the services industry where you can work from home or do a small office. Franchise fee is generally going to be around $50,000, give or take. So you are paying for that business model that you're leasing, that you're going to use to build it up. And then you've got your ongoing royalties, which are between 5 and 10%. That gives that franchise motivation to make certain that they lift you up and get you as successful as possible, because the more successful you are, the more money they make on that one. Now, how do you underwrite it? How do you figure out if it's right for you? You go through the process of investigating that franchise. You go through the process of talking with the franchisees who are currently running that business as well, making friends along the way, but validating that information. And if your your risk level is really low. You don't want a whole lot of risk on that, and you want to make certain that, how do I know this franchise is going to be good and continue to be good? Well, then you probably want to take a look at franchises that have been around for a number of years. Look for franchises that have 100 or more franchisees already in their system. Only about 5% of the 5,000 or so franchises that we have out there in the United States have made it to 100 franchisees or more on that. That way, you know they've duplicated, they've replicated it in many different cities and many different states throughout the United States. So you know that they've got a proven track record of being successful. Also, in their franchise disclosure documents, you're going to see the number of franchisees that are currently running the business, the number of franchisees that started the business and are no longer running it. We like to see 85 to 90% success rate or better. Look for that in there. They don't have the exact, success rate in there, but it's pretty easy math to do that.
So is like, once they get to 100 franchises, is that like the grade A, like the same as we look at Class A assets versus Class B versus Class C? Is that 100 like the check mark, or is the success rate a better check mark metric to underwriting, or like understanding how much? It's hard for me to ask, because like I always relate it back to real estate, right? Like I would think if you have 100 franchises, you're looking that franchisee, they're like the grade A quality asset. You might not make as much money, but your success rate potentially is higher. Is that like a true statement that you could kind of look at it from that standpoint?
Except for the money part, that is correct, Ian. It doesn't really matter which franchise you get into. The amount of money you can make is generally pretty good. They put enough people out there in your territory to where you can make a good, and they're really looking for you to make a good solid six-figure income, because that's what they know most people are looking for. Not all franchises do that on that, but they really try to get you out there. You might need one or two territories to build it up to what you really want to, but that criteria for you to get that, to get your risk level down, to get that A plus real estate, or to get like an A plus real estate location, yeah, you look at 100 or more franchisees and look in the franchise disclosure documents and make certain that the success rate is 85 or 90% or better. And then you're really on the right track for something that's a good, proven, solid model.
Do most folks that want to start a franchise, do they do that so they can be the owner operator and create owner operator income, or do they eventually try to do that they can I don't know what the word is. You know where I'm getting at, but in essence, hire district managers and treat it like their own business, where they have a more managerial entrepreneur CEO role, and they have operators that are in essence doing the day to day.
Great question, Jason. That's what a lot of people have that misnomer about the fact that if I get into a franchise, I have to operate this one full time myself, and that's just simply not the case. There are many different franchises out there in almost every industry where you can start from the beginning running it as a semi-absentee model, where you manage the manager and you manage the profit and loss statements. And if you don't like managing profit and loss statements, give that part to the CPA. You run the manager. So no, you do not have to run it full-time yourself. I would say probably more than half of my people this year have been real estate investors. They're looking to add another income stream
Interesting.
to their portfolio, and they do not want something they have to run full-time. So I get them into semi-absentees. That's another thing, when you look at that and you talk to the franchisees, you want to talk to those people that are running it semi-absentee, especially from the start, and making certain that franchisor helped you out, finding not only the employees for you, but actually helping you find that manager for you, and let the manager find the employees.
And this is, I'm sure that this obviously differs, but in general, what do you think somebody who's looking to create a franchise, and obviously, like you said, there's potentially 50,000, maybe lower, maybe higher in franchise fees up front, plus additional costs. Let's say they do it in cash and they don't potentially raise capital for this. What do you think like the expected date of return on capital where they break even is? Like, for instance, a lot of times somebody wants, if they're going to invest in a business or something, they try to get their money back in 3 years or 4 years or 5 years. Is that similar kind of on the franchise side?
It is, Jason, and that's going to depend on which franchise you get into. When we're driving around, what we see all the time are the brick and mortar franchises. You build it and they will come. It's a general theme on that one.
Yep.
And those are going to be a little bit more capital intensive, because
sure,
that real estate location, as you were indicating, you need a real good A+ real estate location on there. have the franchisor make sure they're the ones that find you that real estate if you're not the person at that. So that one's going to be, that one might be 4 or 5 years down the road as far as, you're breaking even and you're building that up, because it's also going to take a few months for you to find that location, or for the franchisor to find that location for you. And those are going to be, 250, 300,000 total investment on something like that. That includes the franchise fee and everything else. So those are a little while longer to break even on. Now, if you look at the other end of the spectrum, we have the services industry. The services industry is where your clients don't necessarily know you exist until they need you. Now you need a good franchise system to drive people to you when that need arises. Now you're looking at small office or working from home, $150,000 investment, real easy within the first year or two to break even on that, and then just shoot up into profit margins on that, because you can really hit the ground running with those. Once you get trained, you can start going out and drumming up business right away. You don't need the location on that. Semi-absentee on those as well, low investment, and some of those, if you're looking at things like electrical services, plumbing services, HVAC services, the home services industry, great business, easy one to just really hit the road right away. Couple months into, you get into a franchise, you get your training done, bam, you're off and running, because small office is easy to find or work from home.
Yeah, that's interesting. And like, is it safe to say? And again, a lot of these questions are just kind of spurting from as we're discussing it, but I think they're probably questions, and that a lot of the audience is probably wondering as well. So let me think how to ask this question the right way. Is it safe to say that bigger brands, brands that have been along, like a Taco Bell's of the world and things like that, they have huge brand awareness, and in essence, it's like, pay me money, here's your playbook. As long as you follow it, like, you're not going to be able to mess it up, type of thing. Are brands like that, would you say, kind of more volume but smaller margins, but it's pretty much like good as gold, that it's just going to work, as long as you follow it? And on the other side, are some of the smaller, newer brands potentially have the ability to make much bigger margins, but there's also potential more risk?
No, on that one.
Okay.
So the bigger brands will have, especially the ones that are brick and mortar, they have more name recognition. Some of the ones like from Paul Davis Restoration, they make huge margins on there. Great business. That's one that you have to do full time, but they're almost completely filled up throughout the United States. But most people haven't heard about them on that. But huge margins, great business. You get into something like a Supercuts. So great business. Simple to operate. The same thing with the Paul Davis. They've got that exact playbook. They've got large number of franchisees out there, been around for years on that. But Supercuts is going to be a lot smaller income. You don't make a whole lot per location. So you buy multiple locations.
Got it.
You invest in multiple locations to get you where you want to be. So with Paul Davis, or with the 1-800 Water Damage, which is owned by the Belfour Group, the largest restoration company in the world, you've got the margins there. They're huge. You got a lower investment on that one, and but you don't have the name recognition because people just don't necessarily know who you are, because they've really never needed you in the past. So you don't get a whole lot of good name recognition there. And the franchises are going to, as far as, you've got the playbook, you hit the ground, you pretty much can't screw it up. The franchises, what they're looking for, they're going to be looking at you just as deeply as you're looking at them. So they might not accept you. You might not accept them. So if they accept you, then they see something in you that says, this person, if they get up in the morning and if they follow the playbook the way we've told them to, they've got a really good chance for success. And that's the real key there, is having those franchisors really be able to pick out the right person, which is why I look at the success rate. If they have a low success rate, they are not picking out the right people. They're not being picky enough as who their franchisees should be, and they don't know who they're looking for on that. So
I was just going to ask that. What personality type or what person makes a good franchise I forget which one, whatever. The guy that's buying the franchise, what makes that person the right person, right? Because like you hear about Chick-fil-A running people through the ringer before they will accept it. Like, they are super, super picky on who they allow to franchise, and they're super picky on how many properties you can own. At least that's what you hear about. What makes a good operator of a franchise? Like, is there a certain personality type, a certain income requirement, a certain business background that you need to be successful? Because like, I always think about myself, and probably even Jason, is like, I just feel like I'd almost be too entrepreneurial and couldn't follow the rule book, right? Like, I'm like, that play's stupid. Let me go do my own thing. Like, what does that look like?
So yes, so what you're looking at there, what the franchisors are looking for in general, just basic in general, is one, you've got to be coachable. Okay, so you've got to be able to follow the playbook. You have to be coachable on that. That's in general what they're looking for. Each specific franchise is going to be looking for something different. So Sandler sales training, if you've ever looked at Sandler's or heard about Sandler sales training, you have on that one. So I'm not going to put an engineer into Sandler sales training. Okay, they have got they have no sales experience whatsoever. I wouldn't even present that one to them because they would just say, this person doesn't have any sales training. So each one's going to be a little bit different as far as what they're looking for in the background of a person. That's why I really need to get to know you as my client, what's your background, what you bring to the table in there. So each one's going to be a little bit different. But in general, you've got to be coachable. You're going to have a mentor. You got to be able to follow the playbook. Those good military people, for instance, I mean, they follow procedures and processes all the time. They're great folks for it. My entrepreneurs, the younger entrepreneurs, I'd say sometimes are a little bit more challenging on there because they've got the energy and they want to really go out there and do something themselves. And they really don't want somebody to tell them, this is the way to do it, even though it is a proven record of success. So sometimes my younger entrepreneurs are really better suited just to go out and try some things themselves first. My older entrepreneurs, on the other hand, funny enough, they come to me and I'm like, you've done all this before. What are you doing looking at a franchise? Why am I showing you this? And they say, I've done it before. I've gone through all this and I don't want to do that again. I know what it takes to get that business up and running. I want a proven model. I still want to stay in business myself, but I want that proven model that I can just walk right into, step right into, and just hit the road running right off and go. And then back to your question on the financial concerns and for that, each franchise, so in addition to the franchise having the certain backgrounds that they're looking for, which I get to know, we talk all the time, me and the franchisor, so I know who they're looking for in a successful franchisee, but they're also going to have financial criteria on that. So if you're looking into that brick and mortar type franchise, then you're going to need somewhere in the vicinity of $300,000, $400,000, probably $500,000 net worth. Not only to get the loan if you want to go that route from the bank, but also the franchisors have that criteria because they don't want you to run out of money. That's for the brick and mortar. For the service industry, it's going to be a lot less. $100,000, $200,000 net worth is fine because it doesn't take a whole lot to get them started on there. But they just want to make certain that you're not going to run out of money.
And does the again, the whole franchisee versus franchisor, I always forget what's what, but the person that wants to create a franchise, is it usually geared towards something they're passionate about, or is it just straight economics for them? And also, what are like the 7 mistakes to avoid when selecting a franchise?
Yeah, great question there, Jason. It just depends on my people. Sometimes people will just come to me. I don't care which franchise it is. I just want the ones that make the most money.
Exactly.
So with that, I got to say, first of all, it's a little disclaimer, is that the Federal Trade Commission came in at one point when franchising first started, because there's unfortunately some nefarious players that showed up in the field and said, if you invest in this franchise, you're going to make this amount of money. So one thing I can't say is that this franchise will make you this amount of money, because the Federal Trade Commission said you can't do that. You've got to collect that data if you want to get that data out. You'll see it in the franchise disclosure documents. You will talk to as many franchisees as it takes for you to get a good feel for the business, asking them how much they made on that. So you'll have a pro forma to fill out. You'll get the whole thing set up. So you've got a real good feel for it. But I can't come out and tell you that. I can steer you towards the ones that I know that have told me that, this is their gross revenue, this is how much ROI they're getting. So I've got a good feel for it. So some people just say, I don't care what business it is. I just want to make a lot of money. I can run any business on that, which is just fine. I can do that. And then some people have certain, things that they really want more than other things on that as far as franchise goes. So that's part of the criteria I walk through. Some people want to give back to society, so put them into tutoring or senior care or something like that. Now, as far as, the 7 mistakes to avoid, and this is on my website if anybody wants it on there, there's some certain things to look at on there when you're doing that. The first one is understand the business and industry. So even though you want to make a lot of money and you want the ones that make the most money, make sure we get a good feel of the business and the industry itself. You don't have to be an expert at it. You don't have to be passionate about plumbing on that one, because it's hard to get passionate about plumbing. I guess for some people it is, but on that. But you just have to get to know the industry, get to know the business, and by the time we're through walking you through investing in the franchise, you will know. So mistake number one, understand the business and industry that you're getting into pretty thoroughly. And back to your comment on capital, make sure you have enough capital. And part of the process I go through is that the franchisors say, I need this much cash from these people. They got this much cash. They have to have this much net worth. So we make certain that you have that. So always make sure you have enough capital on that one for the total investment, not just the franchise fee. One of the things that we haven't talked about is, like a lot of people like to say, well, what's the hottest franchise right now? What's in fashion? Don't let that cloud your judgment on that. Just because it's good today doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be great tomorrow. Now, if you got into Orange Theory back when it first started and you were, one of the first franchises, you had a lot of territory to choose from. And if you chose a lot of territories, you would have been golden today. So some of the things are going to make it, some other things are not, but don't let it cloud your judgment just because you want to see what the greatest and hottest franchise is on there. And as we were talking about a while ago, when can you expect a return on your money? Mistake number 4 is thinking that you'll be rich in a year or two. Probably not. You're probably making a good income if you get into the service industry in a year or two, but you won't necessarily be rich, and that then goes into what do you define as rich? Spending time with the family, or just making lots of money, or a little bit of both. But don't expect necessarily that you're just going to be a millionaire in a couple years. Funding is another one. Don't dismiss funding. Most of my investors, especially my real estate people, and I got a lot of real estate people that come in and do this, they love using other people's money for this on there. So SBA loans are pretty easy to get. Since franchises have a proven track record, that part's simple on that. All it comes down to is your credit score. If you've got 680, 700 credit score or better, and you've got the necessary net worth, I got people that do funding for franchises all the time. That part's simple. It's great that the franchises have a proven track record. On the other end of the spectrum, though, you can use like a 401k or an IRA. You can do a self-directed plan, a 401k plan, where you use your retirement money to invest in that franchise. You're not going into debt that way, and we've got people that'll do that for you. That's what I did when I started my business on that, because I don't like going into debt, but that's definitely a personal decision for people, but it is an option out there to take a look at. Also, as I alluded to before, is speak to existing franchisees. So a mistake is not speaking to the existing franchisees. Talk to as many of them as you can. These are going to be your friends. These are going to be people that are going to help you build that business, and you're validating all that information that the franchise told you. I will have a list of questions for you for the franchisors and the franchisees. Utilize those, but speak to as many of them as you can to really get a good feel for that business. And last but not least, mistake number 7 is not making use of free experts. Always make use of free experts. On that one, free experts could be people like you and Jason and Ian on there. Talk to them. They know about real estate. They know about investing. They know about funding. So those are the type of experts. Also, your local SCORE chapter, SCORE. Those are great people. I spoke with them before I got into my business. They're business people that are in your area, that have been in your area. So get a feel for them. I ran a couple of different franchises through them when I was doing it to, kind of get them, get an idea from them what the area might like and what the business is all about. So always use free experts as much as possible.
Are there any real estate investing franchises? I remember we buy Homevestors. Sorry, I know Homevestors was. I think they're still around. Is there any other ones that come to mind?
Yeah, Joe Homebuyer is out there as well. So Home Investors, Joe Homebuyer for the 2 residential, and then we've got a commercial investing group that'll help you get commercial investments done as well. So there's 3 of them that I know about specifically for that, and there's many of them that are related to real estate.
Like selling real estate, like real estate brokerages?
There's 1 or 2 real estate brokerages, and then there's things like Majestic Homes, where you buy homes for senior living or memory care on that one, and you can either buy or you can lease the home. Quite often somebody might buy a home, buy the franchise, invest in the franchise, buy the home, convert it to the home into memory care, assisted living care, and then what they'll do is they'll sell the franchise itself, and then they'll keep the building, and that way they have that franchisee in there, and the franchise agreement's about 5 or 10 years, so they're pretty solid and they can keep around for a while. And then there's other ones where shared office space, salon suites for shared salon suite space as well, where you can either lease or you can buy the property itself and then subdivide it up. And then you'll have other people that are going to come in there and utilize the spaces for, offices, hairstyling, nails, massages, that sort of thing. So many related to that. In addition to just the home services one, which is completely related to a lot of the people that my real estate investors really love the home services one because they've already done all that. They're already used to, working with those people. So they step right into that one easily.
Yeah, no, it all makes sense. Jason, you ready to buy a franchise?
I knew a lot of home investor owners, like in what years were those? Like mid 2000s. But I don't feel like we come around. Maybe just because real estate's just everywhere right now. Like real estate investment has just been so hot for the last 10 years. So
there was We Buy Ugly Homes. I think
We Buy Ugly Houses. And they were bandit signs all over 95. There were bandit signs everywhere. And I mean, they were geographically tailored, right? They didn't have too many in each area. But like, I knew the one in DC. I knew the one in Richmond. I knew the one in Philadelphia. And I don't know how many they had per area. I don't think there was many. But I mean, I was familiar with the business model, and I actually thought the business model was actually very smart. They had like some back end bank that, in essence, could provide funding for them, to take down real estate. And it was just it was a good, known brand. And when you're out there trying to find off market discounted properties, having a big national brand that did TV advertisements for you and things like that I thought was very helpful.
Yeah, I think buying the franchise probably creates instant scale, right? Like, how hard do we all work to create the scale that we have today? Like, I think that's the one competitive advantage that we need to remember that you're potentially buying when getting into a franchise. And actually, Greg, I want to ask you, like, how many people that usually buy one franchise go on to buy multiple of the same franchise, or buy multiple franchises in different, I guess, asset classes or different industries, I guess is the right way to say it, once they have success?
So Ian, I've put about 260 people into over 500 franchise units. So my average is a couple of territories per person on that. So quite a few of them will get into more than one territory on that. It's quite often I had one gentleman kind of skewed my ratings a little bit because I got him into 80 different territories on that. So that was back in the day when Supercuts was selling off their corporate locations, and this guy, he's a doctor, and he wanted to provide services to the needy, but he needed a way to pay for it. So the Supercuts was selling off their corporate locations, so we already had the P&Ls, we already had to know how much they made. So he ended up getting 80 of them on that. So we started off with 20, we got him up to 80. Kind of skewed my direction in there. But that's a really good way to start off with. If you really believe in that franchise system and you really like those people, then what we can do is we can look at outlying territories, and you can do a lot of horizontal growth on that. However, if you don't want to go, geographically far out, and you'd rather go, I just want this one territory and these one people, and I want to provide as many services as I can, then you're probably going to look at some of the groups that have more than one franchise system in there. The Neighborly Group, which is the largest home services franchise company in the United States, they've got 20 different franchises underneath their or in their portfolio. So now what you're looking at there is you just take one territory and you do their maid service, Molly Maids on that. And then you start picking up other franchises within the same territory. Mr. Rooter, now you do their plumbing services. Mr. Appliance, now you work on their appliance services. The grounds guys, where you're working on the grounds. Now you're marketing to the exact same people, but you basically own the home. Anything that homeowner wants, now you've got. So that's the horizontal growth the vertical growth that we're looking at with that one as opposed to the horizontal growth. But direct answer to your question, quite a few people actually go out and get more than one territory. To start off with, I recommend one. Just start with one, make sure it works okay, and go from there. But some people really believe in it and go for more than one.
And as like a franchise consultant like yourself, is there anything else that you're doing kind of after they take owner of this franchise, like behind afterwards, or not really? Like, do they come back? Like, because you said that this guy who has 80, you placed him in 80, like he came to you every time in order for you to help. I don't know if it's negotiate or whatever the case is.
Yeah, for him, he was a little bit different. So what I did is I just went out to some of my people that I had placed into the Supercuts franchises and asked them, after a couple of years, if they're still doing okay, they still like it, they still want to do it, because I've got a guy that wants to buy.
Got it.
If they didn't want to, I had another gentleman who got into a kitchen remodeling franchise, and after 3 years, he came back to me and he said, "All right, I've built this one up. It's making great money. Let's sell it and let's get me into another franchise itself." As far as the day-to-day operations, they're pretty much filled up with information from the franchise, because you're never wondering what to do next when you get a franchise in there. So the franchise really takes over at that point in time. They may come back to me for little things, maybe some advertiser marketing, maybe some business development people to help them out. But for the most part, no, I'm through. After I get them into the franchise, they sign the agreement. The franchisor takes over, and quite often they just remember me when their friends ask them about who got them into the great franchise. It's
great
to me, which is great. But otherwise, they forget about me.
So it seems like a great business model, and also a business model where you can just touch so many different people. You know so many different operators, and just know so much about different businesses. And I think that's very interesting to me.
Greg, we like to first off say that this has been really informative, and it just challenges our business model of real estate only, and like thinking about other opportunities that we could branch off from here. So definitely love all the information that you've given us. There's one question we'd like to ask all of our guests. So we're going to put you on blast here, but we know you're a published author, so it might be an easy one. What's one book or podcast that you think everyone should either listen to, or that you're currently listening to, that you're like, man, this is really good, everyone needs to hear about it?
The podcast that I'm on right now is probably the best one that I would say I had to take a look at, because real estate's a really huge thing, and funding for it. So these are the two major things. You're never going to go wrong with real estate and getting into that. Franchising is great too. Don't get me wrong. I love franchising. If you want to get into a business, you're going to do it. But do that. If you're going to get into getting into a franchise, you're always selling yourself one way or the other. No matter what you're doing in life, you're always selling yourself. Zig Ziglar was a great one that I did. I was an engineer when I came out into this, and I went into sales right away with my Schooley Mitchell Telecommunications Consulting franchise, and I didn't do so well to begin with on that. But I read Zig Ziglar in addition to many other books, but the one that I alluded to that ruined my corporate career was, of course,
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah, Rich Dad Poor Dad. Thanks. I lost me there for a minute. So Rich Dad Poor Dad, that'll really get you thinking about what to do. That one's wonderful. And then if you got to sell yourself, Zig Ziglar, great individual. Sales is something you do with people, not to people. So I read those, and those two books are doing great. And podcasts like this, you just got to listen to them. Real estate's a great investment. People are renting more and more on that. Commercial buildings are great as well.
Yeah, man. No, definitely appreciate that. I'll have to look up Zig Ziglar. Where's the best place people can find you on the internet? They want to learn more about what you do. How can they get a hold of you and maybe buy their first franchise?
You go to my website, franchisemaven.com. That's franchise, MAV as in Victor, EN.com. Email me at greg@franchisemaven.com, or just pick up the phone and give me a call. 361-772-6401.
Yeah, we appreciate you coming on, and I took a look at Franchise Maven, and there's a lot of very good information and like over informative. Like there's tons of stuff related to franchises, so I think that's definitely a good good place for everybody to start. So, Greg, thanks again for coming on. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. It's been an honor.
Thanks for tuning in to the Real Estate Reserve podcast. Do us a favor and like, comment, and share our broadcast. It helps the algorithm and helps us spread the word too. Till next time, thank you for tuning in.